You have reached the home of International Rescue. I'm afraid that our staff are out of the office at the moment. For all your rescuing needs, please contact Spectrum and ask for Colonel White. Goodbye.
Cool. Who'd have thought it?
Ah, there you are, Parker.
Begging your pardon, m'lady. If I had known...
No need to apologise, Parker. After all, why should I be the only one to enjoy this little summer getaway? Such a refreshing change of pace from the norm. Don't you agree?
Oh, yes, m'lady.
What's this you're reading, Parker? You looked quite engrossed.
Well, m'lady, have you ever wondered how you came to be? Why am I here? What is the meaning of life? Etc.
Why, Parker? Having an existential crisis?
You could say that, m'lady. This here book purports to explain everything.
Why, how fascinating. Please do go on.
Apparently, it all began over 50 years ago.
What are you doing here?
I have come to finish our discussion about supercars.
Okay, Venus?
Okay, Steve.
Right. Let's go.
Stingray crew to report to control tower immediately.
Okay, Captain Scarlet. It's either gonna be you or me.
There are 600 people up there with about 40 minutes to live. Now, you can't help them, but I believe we can.
Parker, we are off on a mission again.
What sort of business will it be this time?
Show business, Parker.
Thunderbirds are go.
We had no idea in those days that the sets, the models, the puppets would obviously linger in people's memories for so many years and become such iconic figures. A company had been called in to demolish everything within the studios. And we had guys with sledgehammers just coming in and smashing them up and putting them into skips. And we had to stand there and watch this happening. The fact that everything we'd been doing for the past so many years was being destroyed in front of our eyes, I mean, certainly brought tears to my eyes.
Have you heard of a twizzle toy? You haven't? Well, that's because there's only one of them. But perhaps we'd better begin at the best place for stories, at the beginning.
I saw this ad, and it was the holiday time, and I needed some money. So when I saw that, I thought, I'd be interested in that. They didn't give too much information.
Well, Pentagon Films was formed purely to make commercials or documentaries or whatever we could get, because there wasn't a lot of work around at that stage.
And it was at the very beginning of commercial television, and a lot of people were jumping in to make television series.
There was 5 people involved: Jerry Anderson, myself, Red Furderer, Douglas Dobbs, and a chap called Smith Morris.
They were questioning me as if I was like getting this top job. And I thought, little do you know, I'm never going to come back. And so off I went, and I thought, oh my God, I got out of that. And 2 days later, I got a phone call, urgent phone call. And they said, oh, please, when can you start? Because we're in a lot of trouble, we've got something coming. Whereas before they were saying, I'll let you know. And so that's how it all started.
Hello, children. It's me, Little Noddy, and I've got something for you.
One day, a guy called Peter Hayes came in with a noddy puppet.
One on this cup. There. one on his pencil box.
And that's how we did our first little bit of puppet film, a 30-second commercial for Kellogg's Ricicles.
Yes, I fixed that wobbly wheel, and now I'm giving it a nice new coat of paint.
Can I bang something, please? Uppity lets me bang things with his hammer sometimes. I'm good at that.
We hadn't got any idea of making puppets or shooting puppets. It wasn't in our, wasn't in our ambition at all.
Along came a lady called Roberta Lee. She was a writer and wanted to make films.
And under her arm she had 52 15-minute scripts. And she said, would you like to shoot this series? And we said, yes! And then she said, yes, they're children's shows and they've got to be made using puppets. At which point I nearly vomited on the floor.
I say, what a funny-looking toy you are. I've never seen anything like you before. What are you?
I'm Twizzle. And I do.
Oh, what do you do?
I twizzle.
Twizzle was this little character that could stretch to any height. And his legs and arms would get bigger.
I contacted a puppeteer and she came along with this paper mache puppet, very rough face, eyes were painted on, mouth was painted on, didn't open, and it had thick carpet thread to control the puppets. And she said, okay, well, here's what you do. You get a sheet of hardboard, I stand behind it, and on the hardboard you paint a little scene like a garden, say, and I lean over the top and I perform with the puppet and you film it. Well, of course, I mean, I couldn't see how we could make a television series like that.
When we got the job from Roberta Lee, because we were the cheapest, we then thought, well, okay, this is very simplistic stuff to do, but as we're doing it, we might just as well make it as well as we could.
I saw myself that I was going to be something like a Steven Spielberg of that time. And here I was being asked to make puppet films, but we needed the money, so we took it on.
My, what charmingly humble beginnings.
Quite, my lady. Mr. Henderson and Mr. Purvis decided to go it alone and set up a new company, HP Films.
And embarked on their puppet adventures.
Yes, my lady. But you know, their humble beginnings began in rather stately surroundings.
So we're here at Islet Park, a beautiful country house in Maidenhead, and this is the place where it all began. So how does it feel for you guys to be back here?
Weird.
Very strange.
Yeah.
Yes, it's quite spooky, really.
It's changed very slightly, hasn't it?
The grounds when we were here before were overgrown and run down.
Yes.
And there were none of the houses that you see behind here. It was just all part of the grounds of the house.
How long has it been since you were last here?
For me, it was about 55 years, but you were longer.
1958.
57 I came on Twizzle.
I came up with the idea of putting the puppeteers overhead. So we built a Dexian bridge and the puppeteers stood on the Dexian bridge and the puppet was down below, which meant there was nothing behind the puppet, and so we could use cutouts of hills and that sort of thing. And that was the first step that we took towards making, in my opinion, the puppet film respectable.
This lovely ballroom was transformed into a chaos of lamps and cables and trying not to scratch the floor too much.
The schedule was to shoot one episode per day.
We worked all the hours that God made. I mean, we had a wonderful unit. We used to shoot until 12 o'clock at night and start early the next morning.
The first floor was offices and cutting rooms.
Yes, offices and cutting rooms.
And the top floor was where I lived.
Where we all had rooms.
Yeah.
When we were working late, local crew went home, others slept at the studio. And it was all very cosy, sometimes more cosy than I think it should have been.
It was a fantastic way to go to work. It was two flights of stairs, and you were picking up a cup of coffee as you went past the kitchen, and you were on set. And I was usually late. Right, shall we move on? Let's go and have a look round the other side, okay?
Roberta Lee asked us to make another series that she had created. This time it was Torchy the Battery Boy.
Torchy, Torchy the Battery Boy, I'm a walkie-talkie toy. Press my switch, see my bulb start to gleam. It's the most magic light you have seen.
One of the things about Torchy was we did our first special effects shot.
Goodbye, Mr. Bumbledrop.
Goodbye, Torchy.
And they explained to me I had 2 wires. On action, Jerry touched the 2 wires, the sparklers will all ignite, and overhead, special effects guy will be able to pull it up on a pulley. I touched the 2 wires, nothing happened. Cut, turn over, touch the 2 wires, nothing happened. And I was getting very, very worried because it was a major shot for us. And this time, I stuck the 2 wires straight into the mains. There was an enormous flash, so bright that I couldn't see for the moment. But all the sparklers ignited, there was lots of smoke, and they pulled it up out of shot, and we actually made our first special effects shot. Bit amateurish, but we finally got it.
Cutting edge stuff. Cutting edge stuff, yeah. It made the Bond movies look like rubbish.
But if that sparkler aspect was the sort of starting point,
yes,
there must have been something was driving you all on to improve the technical side.
It was being paid, which was the main incentive, and surviving. The puppets were hard work, you know, and I think as a director, trying to tell the story with the limitations of what the puppets could do, you know, they couldn't walk about very easily, they couldn't go through doorways, all the usual things, and therefore editing was this business of cutting away to this and cutting away to that to avoid the bits that didn't work. And I think the special effects came as a great filler, you know, when in doubt, blow something up.
Were you a close-knit crew? Was there a real sort of family feel?
Yes, very close, very close. It was very. I remember Christmas once when we were right up to the last minute, and I think they cooked a turkey in a film can, in a 3,000-foot film can in the oven. Anybody who wasn't working on set used to go and baste it.
Torchy is looking for a needle and cotton to sew up my biggle-boggle.
Kenneth Connor had a very dirty mind. His big chance came when I played Flopsy the Rag Doll, because her stuffing kept falling out, and then she wanted to have the stuffing put back again.
I do hope, Pilly, we can find something soft and woolly to stuff inside me.
I tried to make them into family shows, and so we had scenes or lines of dialogue which were a little risque at that time.
I've a wonderful idea. I'll make a toy boy.
But it would go straight over the kiddies' heads.
The children were playing and shrieking in the garden. All except one little girl, who was on her own. She was always stamping her feet and telling everyone what to do. So the children called her Bossy Boots.
Roberta Lee was a very rich lady and very difficult to get on with. She wanted her own way in every single thing.
She was not totally sympathetic sort of lady.
And Jerry found out that she was getting a lot more money than she kidded us, because she came along with another proposition. And Jerry disliked her so much, he didn't want to do it.
We had made not a lot of money, but enough to make a pilot film.
They wanted to start making the pilot of Four Feather Falls immediately, almost immediately. They finished Torchy. So I was taken on to make the puppets, or make the bodies of the puppets, but I had to be kept undercover, and so I was in the greenhouse down there, and they used to say, "Roberta's coming, quick!" And they used to sort of hide me.
Welcome to Four Feather Falls, the friendly western town that's full of fun and excitement.
Struth, I've come over all colourblind.
Where are we, Parker?
It says here that this is Four Feather Falls. You see, it wasn't always sci-fi, milady.
Barry Gray, the composer, had this idea for a cowboy series.
In those days, when you go to the movies, you see we see a western, not a puppet western. Going mad here now.
Four Feather Falls, a western with a difference. Here's the sheriff, Tex Tucker.
Howdy, folks. I'd like you to meet my horse, Sir Rocky, here.
Awfully pleased to meet you.
He's a thoroughbred, you see. And my other pal, Dusty.
Hiya, folks! Yes, they can talk, thanks to these magic feathers.
We hired a number of stars of that time. The dog and the horse were played by Kenneth Connor.
When we were doing Four Feather Falls, I suggested we used a singer called Michael Holliday who sounded exactly like Bing Crosby.
Four Feather Falls, I said Four Feather Falls, the only place on earth to be. 'Cause Four Feather Falls, yes, Four Feather Falls, means heaven on the rays to me.
I said it'd be wonderful if he could sing a song for us. And we eventually got him, and I think it cost us $5,000 in those days. I thought he had a wonderful voice.
Four Feather Falls, Four Feather Falls, means heaven on the range to me. Heaven on the range to me.
The sheriff's voice was played by, wait for it folks, Nicholas Parsons.
I told you to get out of town. And that's just what you're gonna do.
Jerry had already cast you, but wanted to know what voices for you to put to the characters he wanted you to play. And he said, there's the old woman. Now, Denise, what kind of voice would you try that? And you tried different voices. He said, oh, I like that one. But he said, well, the trouble is, we really need somebody to read the part of Tex Tucker, the sheriff. Nicholas, he said, would you mind doing that?
I'd already plugged you, actually. Go on. I told him you'd be wonderful. But anyway, go on. And you did do it.
White man, good. Save Makuya. Kala Makuya. Give a reward.
I want no reward, Chief. All I'd like is a drink of water and something to eat.
And I remember his words at the end, and this is absolutely factual. He said, well, we found some excellent voices that Denise is going to supply for the other characters, but I think we've also found our Tex Tucker.
There was a scene in the main street of the town at night. It was meant to be everybody in the town was in the saloon. On the windows, which were tracing papered over on these windows, they wanted silhouettes of lots of things going on. Bob Bell was a great character, and Bob and I were both given the job of lying on the floor behind the set with cardboard cutouts of cowboys with big hats and holding them there, jiggling them about. And we were saying they had to wait while they were lighting and ready. We're going to do a take, right? Okay, jiggle. And we were jiggling away, the two of us side by side. And that cut, that's it, thank you. We're going again, just wait. And there'll be a lot of mumbling. We couldn't hear the other side. And then Bob turned to me and he said, do you realise there are men out now in the North Sea trawling for fish, battling with the elements, and what are we doing? We've got two cardboard cowboys and we're jiggling them about. He said, do you consider that a job worth doing? And then we had the giggles, and the next thing you know, somebody was screaming, we're running! Action! What? Oh.
But you'll find 30 gals in frills and laces, happy hearts and friendly faces, way back in my hometown. Well, there's a little old street where neighbors get together, yes they do. And if you ever get there, you'll never see a crowd. Give me those wooden shacks and open spaces, happy hearts and friendly faces, way back in my hometown. Way back in my hometown.
Far be it from me to interrupt, Parker, but what is Supermarionation?
I was just getting to that, milady. Problem is, it's all a bit, technical, so I've had to call in a favour. there, folks, and welcome to Brains Explains. I'm Brains, and I am going to explain. In this installment, I'd like to talk to you about Supermarionation, a term coined by producer Jerry Anderson that was intended to describe the unique form of puppetry employed by the team at AP Films.
You were making the sort of change from papier-mâché puppets through to carved wood and onwards, and I always felt from Dad that he was terribly embarrassed at the fact he was working with puppets. I don't know if you guys felt the same, but Supermarionation being super marionette animation, that contraction that he came up with, was, I think, part of the plan to drive things forward and improve things.
What then is the makeup of a Supermarionation puppet? At its core, this comes down to two unique features: a glass fiber head and the ability to speak.
Tell me about the process of actually improving the technology and the process behind making these puppets.
Well, it really started with Four Feather Falls when the lip sync was done electronically instead of by hand.
My horse. You've made him talk. But he's got the darndest English accent. Naturally, old boy.
The difficulty was that the mouth was operated by strings to start with, and the sync was very inconsistent.
You're treading on my toes. Ouch! Oh, do be careful. I'm sorry, but I can't help it.
We'd started off a bit late and ended up on time, and the editors had an awful job to fit the dialogue later to the actual mouth movements.
In order to achieve convincing lip sync, pre-recorded dialogue was played back on a tape in the studio. The sound waves on the tape were converted into electrical impulses, which were then fed via a wire up to the puppeteer bridge and then down into the puppet's head. Oh, it's enough to make you lose your dinner. The result? Perfect lip sync. In theory.
Different actors' voices, different pitches and timbres, whatever they're called, affected them differently. So there was a certain amount of adjustments had to be made. And there were two big main controls. One was sensitivity and the other was damping. And by altering these dials, you could alter the way that the mouth on the puppet responded to the dialogue. And also, if there was two puppets speaking to each other in the same line, the operator had to key across between the others, and if the dialogue was close, it was quite an art. When they played the line, maybe hello, how are you today, or something, it would be either his mouth would open, hello, how are you today, and close, or else it would go, hello, how are you today.
I can't wait to see Atlanta's face.
You know, they would lift the back of the head off and tinker around, put it all back, say, right, now have a go.
And then Jerry would be finally happy and say that was as good as we'll get it, usually.
You can say that again.
In the end, the ballroom was overcrowded. Making another series there was almost impossible.
We then actually moved to a small factory on the Slough trading estate.
Look at that. Good God. How amazing. How amazing. Fantastic.
There's a surprise. When we came here, it was much better than Islet Park, because Islet was very cramped, very small, and this, suddenly we had space.
Yeah.
Although it doesn't, it seems quite small to me now.
For filming it was better, but I was sorry to leave Islet Park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Such a nice
Happy
place.
memories. Yeah.
And this is the actual kind of bridge
It was the kind of
that we
bridge.
had.
Well, that was the small bridge, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say, it looks small.
The big bridge hung from the ceiling, and it was quicker. These little stages here that had the sets on were on wheels, so you could turn them round to do reverse angles, because obviously you couldn't turn the puppet operators around the other way. If you think, Mary, if it goes down, we'll go down together.
Yes.
Right.
Supermarionation was originally developed for Four Feather Falls, and AP Films hoped to expand upon the technique for their next production.
It had a great deal of charm, and it did very well. It got the front cover of the TV Times.
Very happy times, very happy atmosphere. But that was due to Jerry and Sylvia as well, because they created a lovely atmosphere there.
It was like going to a country house. It was always in the country, wasn't it? Where we
No, it was AP Films down in Slough, which was a...
Yes, but that was in the country.
No, it's an industrial area.
Oh, well, I used
It was
to
on
go
an
off.
industrial estate.
Was
But this,
it really?
This is your
There was
natural
somewhere in the
romanticism.
country.
Your natural romanticism. You painted Slough as a beautiful place in the country.
Yeah, well, I probably did, yeah.
And we really were so thrilled with it, and we thought we've really got it here now. So we just waited, as so many people have to do in our business, for the phone to ring. And when it doesn't ring, it's not a very good sign. You know, money was running out now. And finally, we phoned, and they said, oh, it was lovely, we really enjoyed it, but thank you very much. I don't think we need any more.
Nothing else was on the horizon, and slowly the money ran out. And a friend of ours called Frank Green came in, and we told him that we were going bust.
He said, well, that's ridiculous. He said, I'm coming in tonight to see you.
He said, I've got a friend called Connery Chappell, and he knows Lou Grade.
And Jerry went to see Lou Grade and said, we want to do this series about a machine called Supercar. And Lou Grade said, oh yes, how much will it cost?
I said to him, we've budgeted out and it'll cost £3,000 an episode. And he exploded. £3,000 an episode? I can't afford to pay you that. This is for a kids' series. What are you talking about? He looked at me and he could see that he'd, shaken me, and I was really quite frightened. And so he became very nice then. His Uncle Lou now. Look, Jerry, if you come and see me tomorrow morning at 7:30 and tell me that you cut the budget in half, I'll give you an immediate contract.
Well, Jerry sat down and came up with a figure which was only a third less than he'd offered to Lou Grade.
Dawn was breaking, and we hadn't cut it in half. And I remember saying, look, we've allowed for 4 cups of tea a day for the unit. What if we reduce that to 2?
So we went to see Lou Grade, and Lou said, well, I'm afraid it's not just what you wanted, but that's our figure, and that's our last figure. So Lou Grade sort of got up from his chair and went up to a door and said, just a minute, and went through into what Jerry took to be another room, and came back a few seconds later and said, okay, you got yourself a series. It transpired later that the room that Lou Grade went into was not another office, an accountant's office or something. It was in fact a cupboard.
I turned back and said, Mr. Grade, is it possible for you to let me have a letter of intent? And then again he exploded. He said, a letter of intent? My word is better than any contract or agreement you could ever get drawn up. Now get out of here and make the series.
Supercar, supercar, with beauty and grace, as swift as can be. Watch it flying through the air. It travels in space or under the sea, and it can journey anywhere. Supercar, supercar, supercar!
Supercar is set in 1960 in the Nevada desert.
With the pilot, Mike Mercury,
A good, clean, all-American guy.
Full throttle vertical.
His rather freckled sidekick, a kid called Jimmy.
All set, Jimmy?
Yeah. Gee, I sure am excited.
Better climb aboard then.
Of course, for merchandising, a woolly animal, which was Mitch the Monkey.
Mitch!
If you consider that there are three characters, Mike Mercury, Jimmy, and Mitch, you ain't got a lot of dialogue going between those three. But if you have somebody like Beaker, you begin to get some interesting dialogue going because he's a character.
Oh, I say. Now who's a fool?
We did find it very challenging to write dialogue for him. Mitch, eek, eek, or I shouldn't go further than that because it may be ethically wrong with the animal kingdom.
And they're constantly being tailed by Master Spy, who wants to steal their technology.
Well, friend Zarin, and what do you think of that?
Oh, I liked it, Master Spy, very much. But I prefer westerns.
You fool. We seek not to rival the motion picture people, but to gain valuable information.
Oh.
We needed aerial shots, background shots that we would put the supercar in front of, people looking out of the window of supercars, so we had to have air to ground shots.
We had to come up here at White Waltham with a twin-engine plane. We flew over the south of England shooting clouds.
We went up to 12,000 feet in this aircraft, and 12,000 feet you really need oxygen. Otherwise you can get oxygen starvation and start doing silly things like jumping out of the aircraft and believing you can fly, that sort of thing. John Reed was very distressed. He was on camera and he was gasping for breath, rather like a fish out of water. And I said, John, what's the trouble? And he said, Jerry, I can't breathe, I've only got one lung. Well, I was shattered because I'd known him for a long, long time, but I didn't know this about him. And so I rushed to the cockpit and said, quick, lose height, because my partner has only got one lung and he's suffocating. And the pilot said, but I've got an engineer here who's got a cold, and if I descend, I'm going to blow his eardrums out. And so we circled for half an hour to come down in order to save John and the engineer.
Mike, there's only one chance. Fire the air brakes at 0 feet. It might just save us.
Roger, switching to clear view. Height 5,000 feet, descending 12,000 feet per minute. Stand by to fire air brakes.
Hold tight, Mitch.
Fire!
Supercar. Quite a departure from the Wild West.
Well, you see, m'lady, the 1960s was the era of the space race, which meant that science fiction was hard vogue. And besides, having the characters sitting in all of these vehicles helped with one other problem.
We could get the puppets to do most things that we wanted, but the thing we couldn't get them to do was to walk.
Working with puppets, of course, is very difficult.
Very, very difficult.
Very, very frustrating.
Very frustrating.
Hang on, string's broken.
Her lips jammed.
His arm's locked again, Yeah. sorry. 1 second, standing her up. And... sorry, her boobs have turned.
It's enough to make you lose your dinner.
Oh, sorry, he's supposed to talk during that.
They are the most difficult things to work with. And it's more a science than an art, the construction of these, so that they move well.
At the end of 6-foot strings, you are, to a certain extent, quite sort of remote from it.
You can see the length of these strings was a real problem. That when I turn this controller here, there's a delay before the head moves, like that. It takes time. So when you turn the thing, it took a while for the puppet to react. There's a delay, and then when it moves, it carries on swinging. So you then had to try and correct, and way out of practice.
With the marionettes, they they swung about quite a lot. You sort of turned their heads.
My arm's aching already. The knees used to bend as your arms got tighter and tighter and tighter. They ended up
sinking to the floor.
Sinking to the floor. Woo!
You could give the impression where you'd have somebody cross an alleyway, but you'd put something in between them and their lower half, and so what you saw was the character from there up,
waist up,
and then you'd shoot the shot, and it looked as if they'd actually run somewhere. Of course, they hadn't run anywhere; they'd just been dragged across.
I know that you were all constantly on a quest to sort of make the puppets more real. So, what did you do?
I went along, and I chose all the men, and I put little willies on them, you know. And when the girls got in the morning, there was the most terrible uproar about these. And I said, well, you know, you've got to bring them to life somehow, haven't you?
They'd spray the strings to make sure that you couldn't see them, although you could, of course. Don't say that to my mother, she doesn't like that.
Because they were very specialised, very, very thin wire. All right, you can see them now and again, but on the whole, they were incredibly thin wire, but they were always breaking.
The time one spent getting everybody and everything ready for the moment when the camera was going to be switched on to make a take. You've got to check if this one is right, if the puppeteers, sometimes it would be 3 or 4 puppeteers all standing there holding this weight, you know, waiting for the moment when you were going to turn over. There are strings that have to be dusted and got rid of because they would glisten in front of the camera. There might be somebody who's got to do something at a particular moment, and everybody's got to be ready. And so everybody, after all this time that we've been waiting, rehearsing, lighting, getting the right lens, doing all these things, everything's ready, and so, you know, you say, okay, turn over, action.
We had, in fact, been living together for quite some time, and now and again she would say, well, aren't we going to get married? And I would say, yes, of course, but we can't do it at the moment, we were too busy. And eventually we found the time, and we went up to town, got married. I was driving back to the studio, and it was quite late, and on the grass in front of this little studio, I saw the round water tank the fire service had filled with water, and they had supercar on a line, and somebody was holding their breath, holding it underwater. They would release it and pull it out the water, and it wasn't working. So I said to my then wife, sorry, I'll be late.
Early on, I think it was big. Jerry and Sylvia were still happy together. I can remember them both being very happy and romantic.
Jerry, absolute visionary.
Sylvia, she was the person everybody went to if there was ever a problem.
He was very gentle, and he had great imagination, and he sort of inspired one.
I loved Sylvia from the moment I met her.
The truth is that we worked together, so I was able to supply, if you like, the human side, and he was able to provide the technical side and work with our technical team.
He actually changed the face of not just children's television, but television.
He was a workaholic, Jerry. He'd work day and night. He didn't have any other interests whatsoever.
He was driven, a driven man, without question.
He would sometimes get very offended if somebody was seen to be defecting to another side. He fell out with a few people along the way because they would go and work for another studio or might suggest something contrary to what he was thinking about, whether that be something creative or a design or a story or anything like that. So sometimes he would fall out with people unnecessarily and burn bridges, which was a shame because that never really helps. But I think he was a product of his upbringing and had some really tough times. And those things not only caused these I don't know, ructions, I guess, with other people later in life, but those are also the things that made him so successful.
Jerry was a terrific editor, and he was in the Air Force as well, and I think he was a control tower man. So he had a great sense of drama. You know, and I can imagine Jerry sitting there hoping something would go wrong so he could have a drama on his hands that he could then relay to a bigger drama.
She was like a social worker or an agony aunt.
Never in a flurry, never lost her temper. Wonderful.
You do find when you've got a group of people, there are problems. They're going to be.
People would come in and go, oh, it's Sylvia, because it was like a big family. You know, I was going out with so-and-so, and he's just broken up with me. What do I do? And my mother will go, look, don't worry about it. You take a week off, and then you know, I know you must be very upset. Don't worry, and you can go, I'll see you next week, and we'll talk about it when you come back. You know, it was all that sort of thing.
I was naturally interested in their problems, you know, they're having problems at home or the financial things or whatever it was. They came into my office and we talked about it.
Sylvia was, without doubt, the most important part of AP Films, I think.
I mean, Sylvia was also not only did the voice of Lady Penelope, but she was part of the creative team.
And was no fool when it came to actually deciding what could and couldn't be done with the shots.
As our series is based on the 21st century and is futuristic, we try to at the least make the costumes contemporary and at the best futuristic.
Are you trying to somewhat lead fashion by the costumes of Lady Penelope?
Well, we are really, yes, and there will be Lady Penelope dolls and fashions, and I hope this will perpetuate the image that we create on the screen.
Jerry was much more creative in different directions, so he would be very good with ideas, with all the adventures, all the hardware, everything.
From the point of view of creating fantasy, it is important to make fantasy as believable as possible so that it is acceptable. This is what we try to do.
No one person can put together a sort of series that we had. And I think at that time, that was the secret of our success. Not one or the other, but both.
Supercar, supercar, with beauty and grace, as swift as can be.
Well, Parker, what happened next?
Oh, sorry, my lady. Supercar was an amazing success all around the world, and AP Films was well and truly saved from bankruptcy.
And so the series ran and ran.
Not quite, my lady. Old Lou Grade was always looking to the future. He wanted something bigger and better.
Okay, Venus?
Okay, Steve.
Right. Let's go.
I had heard that the Russians were experimenting with launching their rockets instead of vertically and rising vertically, that they would go along, gain speed along a railway track, and then, rather like an aircraft, lift its nose and fly.
The opening sequence for Fireball XL Fire, where it gets fired up a ramp with all these rockets, was a nightmare because Fireball had to be held on wires. And there I was hanging over the top of the set trying to match the speed of the vehicle being pulled up the thing. And if you look at it, it's terribly bumpy.
Fireball XFI came out at the time when the space race was hotting up. And of course, it was the time of the Cold War between the West and the Soviet East. So there was a lot of paranoia in the air.
As I feared, Lieutenant 90, a missile.
According to the computer, it's carrying a planetomic bomb.
Steve, Zodiac and Venus work for the World Space Patrol, and they basically fly around a certain sector of space, exploring it and defending it from any alien attackers or odd occurrences.
Say, Venus, how's our beautiful doctor of space medicine?
I gather by the compliments, Steve, you want something to eat.
There was slight comic relief from Professor Matic.
Matthew was a crazy inventor, basically, I suppose. A kind of mad professor type.
We're on our way home at last.
On our way home.
There was Robert the Robot, who was quite engaging. He took the camera very well, and it was very amusing when he used to shoot his top.
Understand the blue.
Now, Robert, it's no need to get all steamed up.
He did a lot of curious creatures. This was the head of a fish creature. His teeth were made out of plastic toothpicks. This plant man was from another one of the Fireball programs. And again, this is a carved figure. His eye was just one single light bulb in this flute.
The Earthmen, Steve, Zodiac, all of them, powerless.
It is poisonous, Professor.
Get the gas masks, Steve.
Gee, that's better. I can breathe again.
Yeah, me too. Guess we'd better rejoin Fireball and repair the damage.
I'll radio Venus that we're on our way back.
In America, it was part of television history. At the time, America wouldn't touch British product, but in fact, NBC took it for distribution in the States. And it was a huge, huge, huge success.
There was certainly amazing pioneering work done here, although it all seemed very Mickey Mouse at the time.
Welcome home. Full power. Welcome home. I'm so pleased to be back.
Stingray has just passed the island, heading in the direction of explosion zone.
Almighty Titan, Stingray is doomed.
The atmosphere during the recordings was very relaxed, always. Weren't they? Too relaxed sometimes.
We would do 3 episodes at a time. Sylvia would designate who would do the other voices.
And I would say, have you got any comments? Which, of course, I shouldn't have said, because everyone's got a comment.
Everybody gathered around.
That's true.
This one microphone, central microphone. And you know, sometimes there are 8, 9, 10 people there. It was like a scrum.
What I particularly enjoyed about the way that they worked was very much like radio.
We thought it would come as a prepared package in many ways, you know, that the film of the puppets would be made and we'd be dubbing to their little mouths moving away like that.
We didn't have to worry about matching anything. Sometimes when you do animation work, the animation is done and then you have to lip sync it after.
But what joy! We could do it wild, which is much, much easier and better.
So we could do very natural line readings. We could interrupt ourselves, we could stutter and stammer and kerfuffle around and keep the readings very spontaneous.
Well, milady, have you ever wondered how you came to be? Why am I here? What is the meaning of life, etc.?
Why, Parker? Having an existential crisis?
Yes, milady. Quite, milady. Yes, milady. Yes, milady.
I received a call at the studio from Lou, and he said, Jerry, can you come up and see me? And I said, yes, sure, tomorrow morning. He said, well, can you come up now? So I drove up to ATV House, and he looked me straight in the eye, and he said, Jerry, I've decided to buy your company. And I thought to myself, what a bloody cheek this bloke's got. What do you mean? I mean, he didn't say, I'd like to buy your company. No, he said, I'm going to buy your company. Not, would you like to sell your company? No, I've decided to buy your company. And I sat there thinking, what a damn cheek he's got. And then he told me how much he was prepared to pay. And I remember thinking, what a good idea that he should buy my company.
Stand by for action. We are about to launch Stingray.
Why? It's in colour.
Yes, m'lady. Something facilitated by Mr. Grade's do.
You mean Lord Grade of Elstree, Parker?
Quite, m'lady. Incidentally, old Lou's cash changed everything for HP Films.
We moved from Ipswich Road to Stirling Road on the Slough Trading Estate in 1963.
That's where it all really took off.
Greenville, I am calling battle station. Anything can happen in the next half hour.
We had more money, we had more time.
The sheer luxury of a large building.
We had everything that we ever dreamed of.
I thought that that was the beginning of something special.
Stingray was a submarine which could go to great depths. This is how they discovered a race of beings that were living underwater.
Because we've been everywhere, if you think about it. So we thought it was time we went with our characters underwater.
They were based at Marineville, where we had Commander Shaw in charge.
And they are essentially defending the planet from Titan, who is an evil undersea overlord or underlord, I guess you'd say. The main craft there is Stingray, which is piloted by Troy Tempest and Phones, and they're ably assisted by the dumb but beautiful Aquamarina.
It became a jokey thing in the end, of course, with a woman that doesn't speak.
One of the girls in the control room was called Atlanta. Those two were both in love with Troy Tempest, lucky old Troy Tempest.
Commander Shore, Lieutenant, Atlanta, meet Marina, the latest recruit to the World Aquanaut Security Patrol.
Marina. Well, what do you know?
Yeah, well, as I was saying, at least we know what we're up against.
Well, I certainly know what I'm up against.
I was very pleased to be part of the Stingray process because I understand that it was the first series to be done in England that was done entirely in color.
While we were in America, we saw colour for the first time, and it just knocked us out. And we said, we've got to do our next series in colour.
It had no shelf life if you made it in black and white. The whole world was going to turn to colour.
Kodak managed to produce a single strip of film which could be exposed like any other film, and when it was developed and printed, it came out in colour. And that meant suddenly that it was possible for us, who were making television pictures, to make them in colour.
But of course we had to talk to Lou Grade again. So we came back home, saw Lou Grade and said, Lou, you've got to do our next series in colour.
Being cautious, as I've always been, I sent Reg Hill to the American networks where they had been shooting colour.
Bones, watch what you're doing with that paint. Oh, sorry, Troy.
And when he come back, we'll have a little chat on stage and we'll go, right, mate, got to be flat. Everything's got to be lit flat, 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 flat. No shadows, flat.
Can't use that colour, right? Repaint it. Can't use deep greens like that. Reds are out, it bleeds, you know. And so we had to tear all the sets apart and rebuild them.
That color looks great, Atlanta.
And everything had to be put back
a month, I think, because everything had to be painted and colours had to be changed because the spectrum for black and white television was different.
So as a result, you got everybody coming along and saying, well, what do you do about colour? I mean, what about the background? What about the blue? Can you use white? Can you use black?
If you look at the first films we made in colour, they all have one thing in common. When you looked at the screen, it said, they are shooting in colour.
It was really quite a revolution, but it was nice to know that we'd started it in a way.
Right. Stand by to repel attack.
Shots involving water were a staple of the effects unit. For surface shots, a special tank with an infinite horizon was constructed. However, filming underwater required a little more ingenuity.
So as you can see, the illusion of being underwater is done by holding the model on wires with a set built behind it, a fish tank in front, and little fish swimming around in the tank, and reflections in the water, which added to the realism. That's how we used to do it with a high-speed camera.
We were sitting in the boardroom one evening, wondering how to shoot underwater stuff, and Reg Hill said, I've got a brilliant idea. Look at that calendar, there's an aquarium on it. That's what we'll do, we'll shoot through an aquarium.
Shoot through the dots.
And this tank was manufactured on Slough Trading Estate, and it had really quite thick glass in it, and we started shooting on it. And when you put water in the tank, you could see the putty bulging out on the edges of the tank as the pressure of the water pushed the glass further towards the metalwork, and unbeknown to anybody, there was a welding spot of metal proud, and the glass over a period of about 3 days got closer and closer to this point. The whole thing shattered.
It's a perfect example of what I was saying earlier about learning tricks here in the small time and then using them again. Because at a big film studio, I did a whole underwater sequence and we shot through a tank, and it looked so convincing, it was unbelievable. And I kept thinking, it was trying those ideas with Jerry all those years ago, and here I was on East Stage at Shepperton doing the same thing.
And so, Your Majesty, with my great cunning, using all the experience I have gained working as a surface agent, I have discovered that Duke Dexter is coming to Marineville.
Excellent! Excellent! How did you find out?
Well, I read it in the newspaper.
Brilliant! So, Duke Dexter is coming to Marineville. Who is Duke Dexter?
One day there was a gentleman standing by my bench, and he was standing there in his suit, and he stood there for quite a long time, and I thought, well, obviously he's part of a visiting team, and he just suddenly said, that's amazing what you're doing, the talent you've got, he said. How did you learn to do that? So to make conversation, I said politely, you know, you're visiting the studios. He said, well, no, I work here. And I thought, work here? I've been here years and I've never seen this guy. And he said, well, I don't actually work in the studios, I just write the music.
Supercar, with beauty and grace, fast as can be, watch you flying through the air. Captain Scarlet, he's the one who knows the Mr. On game and things they plan.
You're magic to me, a beautiful mystery. I'm certain to fall, I know, because you enthrall me so.
Oh, the music was fantastic.
Yeah, Barry Gray.
Ah, yes.
I mean, Barry Gray's music was the most identifiable constant through all the Supermarionation shows, I guess.
My God, the way his tunes were played all around the world.
Music was, to me, one of the crowning glories of every programme that was produced by Century 21.
You couldn't possibly say that they were all variations on the same kind of music. I mean, Barry was a musical genius.
It had a personality, his music. It was always a few notes that were totally memorable.
I don't think you'll find many other shows whose theme tunes have become so entwined culturally, like the Thunderbirds March.
Thunderbirds! Ah! Go!
I got the Thunderbirds theme when I was lying awake in bed about 7 o'clock one morning. I've always got music running through my mind. Whatever I'm doing, it seems to be a subconscious thing. If I need a theme or something, I call upon it and there it appears. I composed the Fireball theme in my mind when I was driving back from the film company home one evening, and this is how it goes.
Music was his absolute world.
My heart would be a fireball, 'cause you would be my Venus.
So tell me, Parker, when do we enter the story?
Well, it's funny you should mention that, m'lady. We're about to come on the scene, as it were. You see, it all began with a main disaster.
8 days and nights had passed since Lengada mine flooded. For the 3 men trapped below, the critical moments were drawing very near. This was the testing time for perhaps the most intricate rescue operation in mining history.
The story was on every news bulletin for about 3 weeks.
The plan was to bring the men up one at a time, so maintaining the high air pressure which held back the water. All went well. Into the decompression chamber, the miners were transferred without mishap. For 3 hours, they were slowly adjusted to atmospheric pressure. Then at last, they came out.
And of course, it was a very moving story. Many of the men died. The thing that did it for me was they've located the miners, they're trapped under there, and the only way we can get them out is to drill a big borehole. But the only machine capable of it is 8 hours away.
I was at my parents' home and they came in from the garden and were very excited and said, "We've got this amazing, amazing idea and it's going to be a big hit."
And so we embarked on the most difficult and most costly series I've ever made.
Jeff Tracy is an ex-astronaut and entrepreneur who's a multi-millionaire.
Thunderbirds are go!
And together with his 5 sons, sets up a rescue organisation using craft developed by Brains, their chief scientist.
I decided that it made sense that the whole thing would be cloaked in secrecy. Hence, the base was set on an island in the Pacific.
And they basically go all over the world rescuing people in distress. These are scenarios that normal emergency services and rescue teams couldn't deal with.
Of course, the launching of the various machines, the pool that slid back, the palm trees which swung out to allow Thunderbird 2, which came out from a hangar inside a rock. Thunderbird 3 came up and went through a circular house. All of that added interest.
5 seconds. Throw down your gun, or the professor will be pushed in front of the express. 4, 3, 2. Here she comes.
But the most outstanding commercial success of all in television puppetry has been scored by Sylvia Anderson and her husband Jerry, creators of the many science fiction series first shown by ATV and now known throughout the world. The Andersons were in the big time on an international scale. And it was no accident that many of their characters spoke with American accents.
There are two reasons. The first one is financial, is because our programs sold to America and went on the American networks, and this was quite unique at this time.
If you put all the sales together and added up the figure, America would pay a much larger figure than the whole world put together.
We needed the American sale in order to make the sophisticated programs in the puppetry world that I believe we made, particularly in science fiction.
As soon as the supercar happened, it was science fiction, and that was associated with America at that time.
This American woman would not have it. Why aren't these puppets in America? And they were saying, well, they're not American, they're English. And they said, this is a puppet, one of the puppeteers.
Yeah.
She would not believe we made it in England. No, it's American.
In the early 60s, the British boffin was not a terribly glamorous character, not the way he is today. You have the British lawyer, the British doctor, rather stuffy. I don't really think the stuff that TV puppet heroes are made of.
You called, milady?
Yes, Parker. Get the Rolls-Royce. We're going for a little drive.
Having had a whole bunch of American characters, I thought we ought to have at least 2 English characters.
And then I thought the two things that the Americans would understand would be a Cockney character or the posh lady with the twin set and pearls. Well, why not put them both together?
We're closing in on him, milady.
Good, Parker. Wait till we get to a clear stretch of road. We don't want to create a scene. Go ahead, Parker.
Yes, milady.
Parker was born in a pub restaurant in Cookham.
They had a nice English little restaurant there, and they had a wine waiter.
This head waiter, he was obviously retired, but he'd formerly worked in the royal household.
And he'd stop at the table and he'd say to me, things I could tell you about the old Prince of Wales. And then he'd go off.
He was a snob who dropped his H's and then put them back in the wrong place.
He came over and he said, would you like to see the windows, sir? And I looked at Jerry and Jerry looked at me.
Parker was a smash hit overnight, and then, of course, we said, now what are we going to do about Arthur? Were you going to tell him? It was obviously he was a man who was a Cockney, but had pulled himself up by his shoelaces. And would he be proud or would he be offended? We decided he would be offended. We didn't tell him, and he went to his grave never knowing.
Sylvia, the real-life Lady Penelope, is directly responsible for the characterization and costumes.
How do you decide on the characteristics of your cast?
Well, this starts initially in the script stage. My husband, Jerry, and myself write the original script, so that when we actually put pen to paper, we have a mental image of the character as it should be. And I think we develop it from there.
Do you sort of see characteristics in people you know, magazines and this sort of thing?
Yes, all the time, all the time. I think, in actual fact, what we do is we take a composite face. In other words, we take the eyes of someone, nose from someone else, and so on, so we can then produce the perfect face.
We'd got Parker all right, because Parker was caricature. But with Penelope, it was more like a real person.
I modelled what I thought Lady Penelope would look like from what I had of the script, and Sylvia was very interested in that character.
We couldn't get it right. I looked at her and said, I don't know, that's not working. So she said, look, shall I take it home for the weekend? You get to a point where you don't know where you're going with it. So she took it home at the weekend and came back on Monday. And she brought it in to me. This is in plasticine and everything. She painted it. And I said, as she walked in, I said, yeah, that's it. They've got it absolutely right.
It seemed to somehow get more and more like Sylvia herself.
And down to the blonde wig.
Yes.
We had a team of writers by then, but they didn't understand how to write for someone like Lady Penelope. So I had a really hard job, and it made me realise for the first time that there was going to be quite a task to get her into the mix of what we already had.
It was unusual in that particular type of action show for a lady like that to take a leading role, but she caught on.
She was the Emma Peel of Thunderbirds.
Yeah.
They leave me no choice. We're up against men who will stop at nothing.
She was the star of the show, really.
I could write the characters, the women characters, but keep them up to date. And I think I managed to reflect, really, what was happening at that time.
Lady Penelope, I've seen some of your exploits in Thunderbirds, and I must say you play it very cool. And what a fabulous wardrobe, just everybody's talking about it.
Really? Do go on.
I've heard that you have a different outfit for every occasion.
What utter nonsense. Quite untrue.
But, Lady Penelope, I mean, I thought you were wearing,
Are you still on about clothes? Really, as a secret agent, I've got far more important things to think about.
Well, I think this is where I make a quiet exit and leave Lady Penelope to another exciting episode of Thunderbirds.
Flash from Thunderbird 2.
Cut engines.
So, let's have a look at some of the techniques employed to make these impressive craft fly. Derek Meddings and his team experimented with a rolling sky system. This involved a painted loop of canvas wrapped around a pair of rollers. Driven by a motor, the background would revolve, thereby making the model hung in front of it look like it was flying. However, when it came to the first episode of Thunderbirds, Derek had his work cut out for him. With very limited studio space, he had to devise a method that would allow the fire flash to come down a runway. The answer he devised was ingenious.
To enable us to get forced perspective on tracking shots with models and sky and road, we used to use a rolling road running at one speed with the sky moving at a slightly slower speed and models suspended over the top of the road. So cue the road and cue the sky, boys.
Derek, how do you evolve the futuristic designs of your models?
Well, usually I just start doodling on a pad, and whatever happens, that's usually what we get in the time. Sometimes we have to dress them up a bit.
What limits do you put on probability?
Well, there aren't any limits as far as we're concerned. We try anything.
If you ask me, would I name one person that was a genius, in the true sense, it was Derek Meddings.
Pretty handy with his fireworks, wasn't he? We were never short of fireworks on fireworks.
Loved petrol jelly.
Without his effects, I don't think the programmes that were made would have been half as popular as they were.
Anything you put in front of Derek he could do, or he'd get round it, or he'd find somebody who did know how to get round it.
As much as we could, we were bringing big film techniques to the little screen.
The kind of special effects that he was doing weren't being done on a television scale. You know, what did you have? You had Doctor Who, but they were like held together with string. Any special effects they did, they weren't clever and they weren't classy.
Backstage, there's a vast empire of scenic design and model making, Everything is custom designed and built to scale. Houses, spaceports, Thunderbird craft, vehicles down to guns and watches. After use, they're either stored for the future or scavenged for new creations. All the models are identically reproduced in various scales to suit the scene, and a perfect continuity must be maintained. It's a model maker's paradise, spoiled only by the dirtying down process needed to give realism.
The secret of all our models was they were dirted down, like aeroplanes are, with streaks of grease and exhaust burns and cracked glasses on spotlights and so on.
I think if you look at some of the opening shots of Thunderbirds, where we zoom back from, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, the numbers are only about 2 or 3 centimetres high on those models, and yet the panelling work around those numbers has to show as realistic, not just a piece of plastic or wood.
And it was all that level of detailing and the lettering, the little no-step warning signs and things of that nature, which did add a sort of a whole veneer of complexity and reality to our models, which I think was missing from a lot of, at that time, even mainstream film models.
I used to go to the toy shops and buy all these plastic kits, and they would buy them not to make up an aeroplane, but to use all the pieces.
You could go down to Woolworths and you'd come out with a lot of plastic boxes, beach balls, salt and pepper sets, anything really that we thought might be useful. And you would use these as the basis of your model, and then you would detail on top of those shapes and try and disguise them so that people didn't sit and look at it and go, oh yes, there's a beach ball. It didn't always work. Sometimes we got it wrong. There is one thing that haunts me, and that's a lemon squeezer which was stuck on the wall at the back of Thunderbird 1's set.
In special effects, fire and water are known as two of the most difficult elements to work with, as they cannot be scaled down convincingly. However, high-speed photography provided the solution. Conventional film is exposed at a rate of 24 frames per second. By shooting the same action across a higher number of frames and then playing the footage back at the standard 24 frames per second, any motion is slowed down.
Flying shots tend to bump. Aircraft bumps, rockets and so on. The higher speed you film it, so you slow down the action so it moves very, very nicely and prettily.
Small water ripples became crashing waves. Modest fires became raging infernos, and futuristic craft appeared to gain mass and weight, which belied their small scale.
You can see here, this is a shop which uses a combination of plastic kits to look like an oil refinery, and we would have buried in amongst all this stuff little explosive charges and slightly bigger explosive charges and even bigger explosive charges to make the whole refinery blow up, which would be done with a series of hits one after the other, camera running at high speed, and focus from as close to the camera lens as we could get to the backing to make it all look like reality. So if you're ready, boys, we can blow it up.
International rescue from Thunderbird 1.
International rescue? Lady Penelope speaking.
Oh, hi there, Penelope. I'm just radioing in to let you know that I'm heading back in Thunderbird 1. I should be with you in 29 1/4 minutes.
Cool. Anything could happen in the next half hour.
It was made at first as a half an hour. I took it to show Lou Grade. Then title music, lights came up, and he was silent for a moment. And my heart was thumping because I'd spent a fortune on this thing.
5,
And he walked all the way down the theatre to the screen.
4,
Jerry, this is not a television series.
3,
I was absolutely distraught.
2,
Jerry, I'm telling you, this is not a television series.
1.
He then said, Jerry, this is a feature film.
Thunderbirds are go.
Now, the thing is that he then said, you'll have to make them 1 hour. I said, but we shot 9 pictures as a half hour. He said, I don't care, you'll have to make them as 1 hour.
A brand new television series is about to be filmed. The completed puppets, perfect down to the smallest detail, are handed to the expert puppeteers who will bring them to life on the screen. As in any film studio, many different skills are needed. A team of nearly 100 technicians, cameramen and artists are kept busy producing a different 60-minute film every week. And now all is ready. The director has a final check and the cameras roll.
When I first arrived, they were making Thunderbirds, and it was bigger and better, more money, just the whole thing had moved on.
So many people that worked for us were new to the film industry.
I had no idea about the concept of actually making a film and how you put it together, but I learnt it very quickly. And that was what's so wonderful about working for Jerry and Sylvia at that time, was that it was like going back to school.
And the children outside that used to collect outside the doors, but any minute it opened, there were all these faces all sort of staring to get in, and anything that was put outside to cool off would disappear. They'd all take stuff away, you know, and it was just fun. And everybody was friendly and happy there.
It was very, very busy. It was a wonderful, wonderful atmosphere. It really was.
In the swinging 60s, anything is possible.
It was the beginning of the swinging 60s, and we were a terrible part of it.
We were in the hub of it, and we were the stars of the children's programmes.
The Beatles were #1 in every country in the world. England had just beaten Germany in the World Cup final at Wembley.
Anyone who was involved in it was very proud, certainly us newcomers.
It was just fantastic.
Humour was the thing that kept us going. When we were dead tired, no money, and everything was going wrong, we started then, we'd either have a party or we'd just collapse with laughter.
They had at least one marvellous party that is memorable at their home.
There was talk of going in swimming, and somebody said, well, nobody's got any costume. And Des said, I remember him, he stood up, he said, well, I've had enough of this. It shot into the little chalet bungalow they had there by the side of the pool, strides out stark naked and just jumps into the pool.
Everybody screamed and laughed, and then a little voice spoke up, a little lady's voice, and she said, well, what's all the fuss about? I didn't think that was very much, did you?
You were trying to cover everything up, weren't you?
No, I wasn't.
Oh, well,
I was proud of it.
Oh.
The brakes are applied, but the wheels catch fire. They're out of control. Will the plane crash too? We can't tell you, but when Thunderbird reaches the world's TV screens, just ask any child.
Thunderbirds came on and everybody watched Thunderbirds.
The success of the series was like a lift-off of one of Jerry's rockets on a ramp, and it just went up and up and up and up, culminating in Thunderbirds.
At what point did you become aware that you were part of something really, really big?
Well, I don't think any of us did, because we just went from one series to another, and it always got better. And then when we'd finished, well, we don't want any of those puppets anymore because we've got new puppets coming along, so everything got discarded.
Yeah.
And nobody realised we were making history.
I think I realised they were successful when I saw them on television myself. I actually saw them on television, receiving awards.
Mr. Reg Hill, Associate Producer, will receive the award for the ITV Children's Programme of the Year, Thunderbirds.
They used to come flooding in, the letters. I just really thought all kids were stupid because they wrote to Lady Penelope. And I knew she wasn't real.
We had a letter from the National Physics Laboratory. They said Thunderbird 2 is aeronautically impossible. We had that level of correspondence from fans.
What is the series that has made such an enormous impact on millions of viewers of all ages? Now, go, go, go! Thunderbirds are go! Now on the big screen, in Technicolor and Techniscope.
Thunderbirds Are Go was probably just an enormous amount more problems. Everything had to be that much better.
We were going on a big screen. We're blowing up here. The sets had to be immaculate. The props had to be that little bit better. These are puppets, but they're going to be 30 foot tall by the time they get into a cinema. Attention to detail quadrupled, really.
Biggest problem of all was, well, we don't want any strings to be seen. Well, I said, but you know, you're going to be putting this on a 70-foot sheet. How can we avoid the strings? He said, well, I don't want to see any. That's why some of the compositions are a bit tight on the head.
Sometimes I feel you are cheating me. Then you kiss me and my mind is free. But then I think I should let you know that I got friends. So baby, listen to me.
It was very well made, and I thought it was a great picture, and so did everybody else.
It was a really exciting time. I mean, you have to remember, we'd all come up from Supercar and our own private showing down at Ipswich Road, but now we were at Leicester Square. We'd hit the big time, boys.
It was just absolutely magic, really and truly.
I was with an executive from the American company that had co-produced it with Lou, and he was swirling his scotch around in a glass and thinking, and he said, you know, Jerry, I can't make up my mind whether this is going to take as much money as Bond or more.
It was a glamorous time for such a small company.
Why, it was such a glittering affair, wasn't it, Parker?
I don't remember much about it, my lady. If you recall, I was left to serve the drinks.
And the film was an amazing success, wasn't it, Parker?
Mind the gap, my lady, for when you step into the car.
Thank you, Parker. We don't want to fall back to Earth, do we? Mind the gap, Alan. Mind the gap, Alan. Mind the gap.
When the show was over and we left the theatre, the manager, I said, well, good night, sleep well. And he said, you're joking. He said, I'll be up all night. So they'll be queuing up 5 o'clock tomorrow morning to see this. Well, they didn't queue up. In fact, the theatres were empty.
I don't think it got a very good reception at all. I think the reviews were stilted. They weren't kind, as critics aren't. And obviously, it hurt.
And the only thing that we could think was at that time, the audience was not used to seeing a feature film version of a television show. So people would look and see Thunderbirds, and they'd say, well, we've seen it on television. The following day, Sylvia and I went on tour to promote the film. It was just a terrible time because our marriage was breaking up.
I mean, the movies, I don't know, I should say, but they never worked as well as as they did on the small screen.
At the time, we thought we were doing a good job and we thought it was great. But I think, on reflection, I think it's difficult to move that type of show onto the big screen.
When we were recording Thunderbirds Are Go, Denham Studios, news came down that Thunderbirds, the television show series, was being cancelled.
I went to see Lou and I thought he was going to say, let's go on with Thunderbirds, but he said, I want a new show.
I think Lou Grade ran into a problem with distribution.
And I appealed and he said, Jerry, it's easier for me to sell a new show than more Thunderbirds.
I mean, it was doing very well. It was running around the world almost.
America didn't want it anymore, so therefore Lou Grade wasn't brave enough, I think, to realize that he could still keep doing it in England and the rest of the world would follow, but he didn't.
Yes, we missed an opportunity there.
This is the voice of the Mysterons. One of you will be under our control.
Parker, what are you doing?
Beg pardon, m'lady, but we've now arrived at the series which followed in our wake. Not so friendly for the little nippers, is it?
Captain Scarlet was a much colder, a much darker series.
With Captain Scarlet, we were moving away from more of the family thing.
Captain Scarlet follows the Spectrum organisation led by Colonel White. Unfortunately, at the beginning of the series, they have a mission to Mars where they're met by the Mysterons. The Mysterons look to monitor what's going on. Unfortunately, the visitors take it as a potential attack and they attack first. And this initiates a war between the Mysterons and Earth, and it's Spectrum's job to defend it. The main character in that obviously is Captain Scarlet, who by a strange twist of fate is made indestructible. He's at first Mysteronized by the Mysterons and then somehow through an accident regains control of his faculties and helps Spectrum lead the fight against them.
If only we were fighting something we understood, something tangible, something in 3 dimensions.
I know what you mean. We can only hear them over our radios, but I've got a feeling they're with us all the time.
Mary, aren't there 3 different sets of heads there showing the progress?
Yes, that's right. There's Mike Mercury from Supercar, Brains from Thunderbirds, and that looks like, I think his name was Captain Green.
It's Lieutenant Green, isn't it?
Lieutenant Green. This shows the contrast between the Thunderbird puppet, which is Gordon here, and Captain Scarlet. Gordon is more of a caricature, you would say, I suppose, whereas Captain Scarlet reckons to be in human proportions.
So he's got a tiny head for a puppet.
I actually remember everybody was quite excited about the fact that the puppets were much more human scale. Everyone except the puppeteers, who hated them. They absolutely hated the smaller heads and the fact that nothing was controllable, and, you know, the heads would suddenly go bloop, bloop, bloop.
They looked more real, and therefore you were restricted even more, because if they did something silly like a puppet might do, it was totally unacceptable.
My point that I was made to Jerry was that the puppets were puppets. Don't try and pretend they're real people. He was always trying to get away, trying to get to reality.
Dad always said that he thought the puppets were little bastards, and he absolutely hated working with them.
The great strength of puppets is that you can have unbelievably outrageous caricatures, and you can do lots of things with them that you can't do with actors. But he never realised that.
But if he didn't hate them and if he wasn't embarrassed by them, then he wouldn't have gone for the level of quality and intricacy that he did end up with. So, despite hating them, I think his hatred of them served him quite well.
Captain Brown? Captain Brown, are you all right?
When special effects and the puppets had to come together, the puppet was borrowed from the puppeteers and taken to the special effects stage.
There was huge rivalry between the puppeteers and the effects stages.
Yes, we were always a bit worried when the puppets were borrowed, sorry, that they wouldn't come back as they went away.
There was obviously not rivalry, it was, oh, don't blow another one up, please, Derek, don't do it. You know, don't do this to us. You don't know how long it takes. And he'd shrug his shoulders and laugh about it.
Special effects, dirty, grubby, foul-mouthed, lots of noise, quite enjoyable.
There was a good banter between, you know, all the units.
We had a meeting once, we were told not to be rude about the puppeteers.
It would seem that this Captain Scarlet is now indestructible. This presents us with the clear and exciting expectation that he will become our greatest asset in the fight against the Mysterons.
I remember seeing the first episode in the Rushes Theatre, and Mike Trim came out and said, "What do you think of it?" I was a young, green 19-year-old kid. I thought, well, after Thunderbirds, it was so different. Was it really going to be as big? And I think we all knew deep down, although we all loved what we were doing, nothing would ever emulate the magic that Thunderbirds had.
I'm very delighted to have the opportunity to introduce the next film, Thunderbird 6.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, International Rescue's latest top secret, Thunderbird 6.
Back to my days in the cutting room, along came magnetic recording. You'd hold a strip of film and you can't see anything on it. But in fact, if you run it through a sensing head, it produced dialogue or whatever it was that been recording on it. And I just stared in wonderment because there was a recording on it that I couldn't see, but it was apparently possible to wipe that recording and then record something else on the same piece of film. That was what led me to think, well, our brains work on electrical impulses. But of course, this was very, very exciting.
Professor McLean's been developing this machine, which is called the Big Rat, which essentially transfers thought patterns from one person to another. He's approached by a sort of Secret Service type government agency who would like to use the machine and his 9-year-old son to spy on other organisations and prevent terrorist activity.
The Big Rat was an amazing piece of hardware. I mean, when you see at the beginning of the titles that fantastic, all the tapes whirling and the lights flickering and Joe going into the cage and it all going crazy. It is cool. It is really cool.
This boy, we could put him in a machine and he could take the brain of a surgeon, he could be a mathematician, he could be anything, this kid.
What kid doesn't want to be a jet pilot? What kid doesn't want to be a secret agent? What kid doesn't want to be king for a day? To me, it is this wonderful sense of a child being able to one-up adults, which is a dream that every child has when you're being controlled by your parents or you're controlled by your teachers. So Joe is this wonderful vehicle for going places that no kid can ever go.
They can't really stop me now, Sam. They may try ground-to-air missiles. And that's just what they're doing, Sam. They're throwing everything they've got at me. I can't chance it. I'm going in to attack the base.
Okay, Joe. You're the expert.
I mean, it's a horrifying concept by today's standards. You know, it's like you take this little 9-year-old kid and you put all of these brain waves of other people into his head and he then goes off and kills people.
Over here, Coletti.
It never occurred to us that we were brainwashing a young kid because it was for the good of mankind.
Can I do it, Dad? Can I work with Uncle Sam?
Oh, I suppose so, if you're sure you want to. But don't come crying to me if you get hurt.
Thanks, Dad. Thanks, Uncle Sam. Mr. Weston, can I ask you a question?
Why, sure, Joe. What is it?
When do I get my badge?
Right now, Joe 90. Right now.
Action on the door. And dialogue.
I am not interested in the excuses for your failure.
For hundreds of years, puppeteers have had the same problem. All they can see are the strings and the tops of the puppet's head. But by using this system, they can, for the first time, see exactly what an audience can see, and it's leading to greater subtlety in the puppet movements they create.
Jerry had this idea of getting a video camera and sticking it through the eyepiece of the Ariflex.
So the camera operator was working it from a monitor.
It was much better for us puppeteers because we could look at the screen right in front of us there.
Yeah.
And see exactly what the puppet was doing
Yeah.
without looking down on the top of its head all the time.
Because they're behind the puppets while the camera is in front, they have a mirror image on their television screens so that when they move the puppet to the left, the picture moves to the left too. This puppet studio has been experimenting for years with various electronic video systems attached to conventional film cameras.
They turned them off for lunchtime. When it came back for lunch, switched it all on again. It was completely haywire. Pictures were unviewable. Pictures were rolling over like this, or there were squiggles this way and that way, and everybody was fiddling with connectors and shaking the wire all the way down, you know. And then eventually they'd make a phone call, and then some man with a screwdriver would come down. We were always waiting the whole time. There was so much time was lost. It was incredible that, give Jerry his due, he stuck at it. He stuck with the theory, and it was great.
The television picture can also be recorded on videotape. This means that if the director or the cameraman want to check something that's already been filmed, they can play it back immediately. Before, if there was any doubt in their minds, they'd automatically have shot the scene again just to be sure.
You have to hand the credit to Jerry Anderson for persevering with the video assist, because it's now the norm.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. This is a sight our screens have made familiar. Liftoff. But now, in this split second of time, you can share an adventure unlikely to be repeated in our lifetime.
And so, m'lady, we're drawing towards the end of our story. The next show was to be the end of the line for Supermarionation.
Why was that, Parker?
All uttery word speed of your pencil load must deceive my eyebold.
I beg your pardon.
Pardlo, Mr. Andybold will explain it.
In the Secret Service, Father Stanley Unwin, played by Stanley Unwin, lives with Mrs. Appleby, his housekeeper, and Matthew the gardener. Of course, Father Stanley Unwin is actually a Secret Service agent working for British Intelligence Service Headquarters Operation Priest, with the lovely acronym BISHOP. He has a miniaturization device built into a Bible, obviously, and he goes around foiling, again, terrorist plots and saving the world and saving secret plans from those who really shouldn't have them.
Matthew, I'm afraid I may be slightly delayed.
If he ever got into a difficult spot, say the police stop him,
Did you realise, sir, that you were exceeding the speed limit?
I'm afraid I didn't, officer.
he would talk to them in his Unwinese.
Write your scribbly in your bookery. All uttery words, speed of your pen slow must deceive my eyeball.
And of course that would fox the police totally. They had to be polite. They'd say, sorry, I didn't quite get that because they're writing it down.
I didn't quite catch that, sir.
Ah, Partlow, I'll explain to you. Now, Matthew, my gardener, is deep joy with green fingers in the garbage, you understand?
I see.
And in that way, the police would sort of say, yes, I quite understand, so sorry to trouble you, off you go.
All of us at the time, even at the beginning, said, what?
Again, it was the problem that we couldn't make the puppets walk, and I came up with the idea of getting Stanley Unwin to do all the walking shots and driving shots in the same way that I used hands to enable puppets to pick things up. I used Stanley Unwin, married to his own puppet, to enable him to do all the things that the puppet couldn't do.
You were dealing with both live action and you were dealing with puppets. And from my own point of view, I didn't feel that you could get away with it because they were so different.
I think Joe 90 turned out very well, but I think the team themselves were beginning to get a little tired.
And I think there was quite an air of almost depression in the effects studio.
Sometimes I wonder if it was us at the top there losing our grip, or things not going well with us that reflected.
Jerry Anderson, when I first met him, I was very taken. He was another person who was very passionate about the film industry and making films. And sadly, after a few TV series, and he took an office suite at Pinewood, there was a separation, and we found ourselves very much the poor relatives over on the Slough trading estate.
A company reaches its peak in their moment in time, and I think our peak was Thunderbirds.
I didn't think about it at the time, but looking back now, I'm thinking, I wonder if it's because we ourselves were getting a bit divided.
Well, as I showed Lou all the films I made as soon as they were finished. And as soon as Stanley Unwin went into his gobbledygook,
Henry Bold,
Lou jumped up, shouted to the projectionist, cut, 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 stop, stop, put the lights up. And he said, cancel the show, Jerry. Just finish off the first 13. And I said, why? He said, well, people will never understand him in America. And I said, but Lou, so no point, they're not supposed to understand. Never, no. And that was the end of that one.
The puppet era was definitely coming to an end.
I think we'd already seen the writing on the wall. Lou Grade had a more difficult job on with ATV and all the rest of it, so it's all beginning to fade a bit.
It was a big blow when Jerry said we're closing down and we're just selling everything.
It seemed to me as if things were sort of winding down a bit because the main crew had gone off to make the live action film, which was obviously much more exciting to Jerry because it was live action instead of puppets, which he never really wanted to do.
Quite a few of us got together. We tried to talk the powers that be into it, that okay, you go off and do the live action series and we can make this work. We can still make this a success. There's no reason to give it up. We really tried hard to keep it going.
I don't know whether I was relieved, pleased or disappointed. I can't remember, you know, I think I was all three. Because it was 12 years. It was 12 years of pure enjoyment, really. You have great moments in time, and I think it was time to close the shop.
What an extraordinary story, Parker.
Quite, m'lady.
And such a shame that it should all come to an abrupt end. But tell me, Parker, what happened when the studios closed?
A company had been called in to demolish everything within the studios. And we had guys with sledgehammers just coming in and dragging all the sets out into the field at the back of the studio and smashing them up and putting them into skips. The fact that everything we'd been doing for the past so many years was being destroyed in front of our eyes, I mean, certainly brought tears to my eyes. And the shock of it happening, and the shock that you walked away from the studio on that final day with a pile of skips behind you, which was your last 4 years' work, crushed into rubble, was a pretty hard thing to swallow. And it left quite a mark on me.
I suppose one of my great regrets was when Century 21 finally folded. You looked around the place and you saw this wealth of talent that had been assembled slowly over the years, and then suddenly here was this whole thing being broken up, and it seemed a very sad time to me.
It's really good to see, you know, this very, very nice recreation of what it used to be like, and to have brought back all these memories and to get us all here together as well, and to remember lots of people that we've loved and had fun with, and some of them who've passed on, and it's just really, really nice. Thank you.
Great meeting. Very good.
I was lucky enough to work on the most successful set of TV series for children. And they're still watching now. 50 years on. They're still good. Entertaining. Yeah, it was fun.
I still am so proud of being part of Thunderbirds.
I am extremely flattered that I am, in a small way, associated with someone who I think was a creative genius.
At the time, we didn't realise we were going to be such an important part of film history, and it's really surprising that we are.
It was the best time of my life in the film business, really. The very best. It was just pure joy to be with so many really great people, just who had a zest for life.
They were real pioneering days, and they were a lot of fun, in fact.
It was tough. I nearly had a nervous breakdown in the middle of it, but, you know, I'd do it all again. For sure.
Would I do it all again? I should have to think very seriously about that one.
Well, I think up here, yes. Down here, no.
Well, it'd be the opposite way around.
And I was suddenly introduced to this mad lot of people who let me have a wonderful time playing with puppets
And at the end of the week, they pay you money as well.
I personally, like you, I owe him huge amounts.
Yeah, we do. We do.
Huge amounts.
We do.
We really
Well,
do. Thank you, thank you,
thank you,
Jerry.
darling. Thank you,
Jerry. Thank you, Jerry.
Could I say something to you, Parker? In your luggle, I'm very grateful to you for all the inspiration you've given me and all the success I've been able to have in the voice field. It's all down to you, Cock. Goodbye.
But I'm sure sorry you'll have to leave, Penelope.
Well, it seems all good things must come to an end.
Oh, milady?
Home, Parker. And Parker.
Yes, milady?
Well done.
I wish I was a spaceman, the fastest guy alive. I'd fly you around the universe in Fireball XL5. Way out in space together, conquerors of the sky. My heart would be a fireball, a fireball. Every time I gazed into your starry eyes, we'd take the path to Jupiter, and maybe very soon we'd cruise along the Milky Way and land upon the moon. To a wonderland of stardust, we'll zoom our way to Mars. My heart would be a fireball, a fireball, 'cause you would be my Venus of the stars. But though I'm not a spaceman, famous and renowned, I'm just a guy that's down to earth with both feet on the ground. It's all imagination, I'll never reach the stars. My heart is still a fireball, a fireball, 'cause you would be my Venus of the stars.
It's really nice that we could come down here today and be in front of the old studio. And the guys that have got the building now have told us that there's loads of signs that the studio was there inside. You know, you get the feeling that it was there.
Mm.
But having told us that, they said we can't go in because they're doing top secret things inside.
Mm.
So what should we do, Dave?
I think we should blow it up.